Hi, Min. How you
Hi,
doing?
Dua. How are you?
I'm so good. It's so good to talk to you again. Honestly, I'm just so happy to see you. And it's been a year, I think, since we last spoke on my podcast.
It's been too
Um,
long. It's been too
it's
long.
been too long. I know we need to hang out more. You have to move to London, I think. I think
Oh,
this
I
is like
will. If you want me
okay,
to, I
good.
will.
Okay, good. This is a good plan. So we spoke last year on my podcast about your life as a writer. And I'm just so over the moon to talk to you again today, but to go deeper into Pachinko, which is our Service 95 book of the month for July. Um, and firstly, I want to say that I've absolutely loved this book and I honestly couldn't put it down. I started reading it while I was on tour. I was in Seattle when I picked it up and I just absolutely flew through it. I was first swept away by the characters and the intergenerational story, but at the same time, I think I learned so much about a period of history that I previously knew very little about. Um, and you've been so generous and you've shared so many exclusive insights to this book, including some really special details on your researching and writing process, and also for the wonderful essay on the game of Pachinko and how it became like a very organizing metaphor for the novel. And all of that can be found on service95.com. So I'm very excited for everyone to be able to see that. But for our chat today, I really wanted to focus on the characters and the major themes that this book explores. Um, so, shall we get started?
I would be honored. And also, I'm really so happy to be included in your book club. Thank you so much. It means so much to me, truly.
Oh, that's very sweet. Honestly, like I really mean what I say. Like this book is really special, and my sister is very excited because she has joined book club this month, and she's like, "I'm reading Pachinko," and she started it like a day ago, and she's already 100 pages in, and she's like, "I can't put it down." It's
Oh,
just so
amazing.
it's very fun how infectious reading can be, and how Pachinko is really like I don't know, so engaging and so exciting for so many young readers as well. So I kind of want to start by saying, Pachinko is this epic saga that takes place across 4 generations, 3 countries, 8 decades. And the story is told over 3 books entitled Hometown, Motherland, and Pachinko. Can you talk a little bit about the technique you used to construct the novel and why?
Well, I'm so honored. And also, say hi to your sister.
Definitely. She'll be very excited about this.
I'm the middle of three girls, so I know all about sisters.
Well,
And it's a
she's the middle
complicated.
child.
Oh, okay, there you go. Then we're twins. I want to talk about three-part structure because I wanted to tell you that I never intended to write a historical novel. And people are always so surprised, like, how could you have not intended that? Because I didn't think of it as a historical novel initially. But that three-part structure is really important as a historical novel because when you're a member of the diaspora, as I am, as you are, as all of us are who are considered immigrants or refugees or people have who are first, second, third, or fifth generation, you kind of wonder like, where does it all begin? So I ended up writing a historical novel when I realized in the most recent iteration, which is the publication, I realized that, oh, there is a hometown. So before you get somewhere, it begins somewhere else. And you can't explain me and we can't explain Dua without understanding where did we originally come from in terms of generationally. And then I thought, oh, I guess I am writing this thing. How weird and how hard. And I think that if I had understood how difficult it was, I probably wouldn't have done that three-part structure. But hometown is really important. In the same way, I think about it all the time. So I was born in Seoul, but my father's from North Korea and my mother's from the very, very tip of of South Korea. And I think how weird is it that they got married and then I ended up in New York City?
So a major theme in this book is the status of women in Korean society, both within Korea and in the diaspora, and how this changes over time. Starting with Sunja, the main protagonist of the story, how much agency does she have over the course of her life? Um, and how does this change from the 16-year-old girl that we meet at the beginning of the book to the elderly woman at the end?
Oh my gosh. I think so much about what it means to be born a woman, born female, because
Mm,
it is so controversial and so difficult depending upon where you land and where you end up. And if you think about it, Sanja begins at age 16 in the novel and she's pregnant. And she's not pregnant by her husband. She's pregnant. And I mean, if you think about it, she's a child. She's a child. I mean, 16 is very young to be pregnant. And to be born in that era when you're pregnant and you don't have a child of someone that you're married to, what your family approved of, which means that you're essentially sort of cast out and that
mm,
your child would suffer the punishment of it. Why does this happen? It's because she's a woman. And how much agency does she have? Well, when you have these horrible circumstances that are unfair, what do? So she decides, oh my gosh, like she doesn't say, I'm going to give up. She doesn't say, I'm going to become a mistress. And I found that really interesting that a young woman who could have said, you know what, I'm just going to choose the easy way out. He's married. He's saying he's going to buy me a house and my mother a house. I guess I can keep the baby because I want to. And I'm going to just take it easy. And she says, no, I don't believe that. I want true love. And I thought that for a young woman of that era, that's really remarkable because the punishment that she and her child would receive, and also what her family would receive, is so extraordinary. And there were women like this. There are women like this today all over the world because not every girl who's pregnant today, like you and I, have these privileges of living in an advanced economy and an advanced world in which we can have
mm.
freedom. And the very, very end, when you think about Sanja and how she ends up, I think she can look back at her life with great dignity. And I think that's a worthy goal.
Yeah, I think actually, like when I think about um, everything that she went through, I think she has quite a strong agency over her life. Just the fact that she was able to choose against all odds, against everything that has happened in her life, to be able to be like, actually, no, I don't want to be with this man that actually has a family um, in Japan, and I want to, I don't know. Take kind of control of my own life. I think that's incredibly powerful, and that's her at a very young age taking full agency um, and control, which I think is quite remarkable and also quite scary given her like upbringing and the taboo that comes around having a child so young as well.
Just to talk about the taboo, I'm so glad you brought it up, is because how can you have moral agency? So it's not just you're going to choose things that work for you personally, but also not to hurt people. For me,
Mm,
that was really important that Sanja doesn't hurt people. And she doesn't hurt even her boyfriend's wife and the children. I found that really interesting too. And she doesn't connive to be the chosen one and to hurt other women. I mean, that to me was very important.
for many of your Western readers, myself included, Pachinko really is an education on the colonialism and racism that Koreans have experienced in Japanese society. And there's obviously like some obvious parallels that can be drawn to the way Americans treat immigrants, but there are very, very clear differences too. To what extent were you consciously trying to expose this issue to your readers?
Oh, I think I'm really honored and gratified by the fact those comparisons can exist because hate is always found everywhere. Unfairness is found everywhere. But in terms of my intention, I tried so hard to be as specific as possible to the lives of Koreans in Japan. And what's really interesting to me is to have people write to me from Afghanistan and Syria and Nigeria and say, oh, this reminds me so much of what happened to my family. And I think, oh, wow, that's really interesting because I could be really ignorant about what's going on in Syria, Afghanistan, and Nigeria. So in
Mm.
that sense, I wasn't thinking about them. I wasn't. I should be really honest about the fact that I'm ignorant about their history and their culture. And I know it so nominally. And yet they saw themselves in a really specific story. And I think, well, perhaps if I tell the truth, then the universal themes of injustice can somehow carry.
That's really interesting and actually somewhat related to this, actually, one of our book club members, Laurie, sent in an excellent question on Instagram saying, I want to ask her about the first sentence of the book. History has failed us, but no matter. What was the process to have this exact phrase as the opening? Did Min already know this was going to be the opening line, or did it come to her as she was writing? I wonder if you could expand on that.
Oh, I should expand on it because I think people think I'm some sort of genius for having just known that. And I am not. Let me just say that right here. I am not a genius. And it didn't come to me like an egg coming out of my head. I wrote an entire manuscript. I rewrote it several times. And then by the time I reached this version of it, by the time I found Sanja in Japan, because I didn't have Sanja in the initial draft of the book, which is kind of shocking to most people, then I realized, oh, the reason why that first book sucked the way it did is because I didn't think about regular people. And then I realized, oh, I had a fail. I was trained in history at university, and I totally failed this idea that ordinary people are never included, and not in the really proportionate sense. Most history is about winners, and if we write about losers at all, we don't even get 99.9% of their stories. Like, we know so much about kings. Like, just think about how many things you know about kings and queens in England that you had to go through, right?
So
And then you
true.
realize, and it's completely like, how important is it for all of us? Because, like, let's say you are the king or the queen or a princess, but like, and you make rules. There's only, like, let's say 8 of you that really can make any kind of difference at all. But for the rest of us, for the billions of us, we're not studied, we're not included. And then when I had that realization, then the sentence came to me, and I thought, oh, that's my thesis, that history has failed all of us. But no matter, because defiantly we have persisted and we have lived important, meaningful, passionate, interesting lives. And I thought, oh, I'm going to write that.
The question of freedom runs through the novel. And I actually wonder, while reading the book and actually while thinking back on the book, is, are any of the characters truly free? You have Isaac, Sunja's husband, and later their son Noah, and they both try to obey these strict cultural rules and they end up destroyed by them. But the rebellions also fail. And then later Solomon ends up in his father's pachinko business, having tried and failed in a Western firm. And even Hanzu, the Yakuza boss who exerts so much influence over the family, is in the end ultimately alone. So, like, how much agency do these characters have within their society and historical events?
Oh, I'm really glad you mentioned that, because I think it's something that I think about all the time. Because I'm really trying to make my life better. I am. I'm 54 and I'm still really struggling, and I'm fighting every single day because I'm not happy with the way things are. And I think, well, how much of it can I get done before I die? I don't know. I mean, I imagine that you and I are presented with problems every single day with which we are not capable of solving. But I can solve some problems. And I think that's how I've made peace with it. My characters in Pachinko are given unbelievably difficult obstacles, but these are the obstacles of regular people. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that we're not going to have these perfect, happy, immature, childish endings. And maybe that's better preparation for growing up than to be told, if you work hard, then success comes. But so do we give up, though, if we don't get exactly what we want? No. We actually have to keep trying. And I think for me, it's incremental. It's incremental, these changes. And also, the most important things, and this goes back to your question about agency and freedom, is, can we have agency and freedom and our beautiful wishes and still be good? Because that maybe we can be.
I just want to say thank you so much, and thank you for Pachinko, and thank you for Free Food for Millionaires. And we're looking forward to all the all the gifts that you have in store for us, because I think it's going to be a very special and exciting journey. And yeah, thank you so much for doing this chat with me as well.
Well, thank
I
you for
really
being.
appreciate it.
All the writers and readers want to just thank you for being our literary angel. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.